Welcome to a new video on C programming language. Today we will learn about functions in C. I'll start the explanation of a function with a simple story. And the story is here. There is a man who is working on a multinational company and he has lots of work to do every day. So one of the work is making photocopy of several papers. Maybe in a day he will make photocopies of papers, original papers, maybe 10 times or 20 times. Okay, and generally the photocopy machine, here it is, this is your photocopy machine. Okay, so the photocopy machine is it is installed in some other place, maybe in the upstairs. So every day this man has to go from his desk to this place 10 times for making a photocopy of a original document. Okay, so that is why this man is thinking to employ another person who will do this work for him. Okay, so instead of doing that, as he is a programmer, so he thought, why should I employ a person? Why don't I build a robot who will do that task? Because that task is a monotonous task. Monotonous, I mean, it is just a single task for which if he will employ another person, he will charge some money for that, and it will be a recurring money, means you have to give, and every month you have to pay for it. Okay, so he thought, why should I pay money to a person? Why should not I buy a robot? So this is the robot, and after buying that robot he has to give some instruction to this robot, because the work is very simple and this robot is a very intelligent robot. So this man thinks that I should explain what to do every day, because every day this person is going 10 times to this upstairs making photocopies of the original document. So he will explain everything to this robot, and the robot will do the same thing. That means the robot will go to this upstairs, make photocopies, and the number of photocopies that has to be provided by this man only. The man will tell him that you should go take this original document, go to the upstairs, and you have to bring 10 photocopies or 20 photocopies, and then the robot will come down from that upper stair and he will submit that photocopies. Okay, so that is we can say the robot is employed, or we can say the robot is purchased for the sake of making photocopies of some original document. So that means for the purpose, what is the purpose of this robot, or what is the function? I'm using that word, that is function. What is the work of this work or function of this robot? He has to take the original document from this man and go upstairs, bring photocopies and return it to that man. Okay, so this is the work of this robot. Now after he purchased this robot, this man, he has to program it properly so that this intelligent robot will do his task. So what exactly the man is going to do with this robot is something like this. So he will give this robot a name, maybe. So I'm giving that robot name as robot itself. Okay, so this is the name of that robot. Now I need to, the person need to send, or this man need to give some documents to this robot upon which the robot will work, right? So this is the two things we need to provide to that robot. One is called the printed paper, or we can say this is your original document. Okay, this need to be provided to that robot. Then the number of copy that I want to that man wanted to print. So maybe this is an integer number, maybe that is 10, maybe 10 copies he want. Okay, and after printing that copy, after getting this input, what he should do with that original document, that I need to define, or that I need to explain to the robot so that he will do that. Okay, so I need to write all the steps what the robot should follow to achieve its goal. Okay, so what are the steps? First step is go upstairs. Okay, so he has to go to the upstairs, then search the room number. Maybe what I'm talking about is the photocopy machine, maybe installed in some room number, that may be 234 maybe. So I have to give instruction to this robot that you have to go upstairs and search the room for 234, and it is an intelligent robot, he can search it in the stair itself. Then locate the photocopy machine. Okay, after he entering into that room, he will locate it, the photocopy machine. After locating that machine, he has to make 10 photocopies depending upon this number of copies. I have just given 10 because of just I have given input as 10. If it will be 5, then obviously this line must be changed to 5. Okay, then the next step is to go downstairs. He has to come down. Okay, and then he has to search the room number, means where the man is actually sitting. The man may be sitting in some room number, let's say 156. So I'm just assuming it. This is for the sake of understanding what exactly the robot is going to do. And then the last step is return the photocopy along with the printed paper. Okay, so he has to return all the photocopies and the printed paper. So what exactly he is going to return? He has to return the photocopy over here. So you need to write the photocopy, means photocopy, this is the return. Means if you see this entire description of this robot, the robot is described something like this. So this part which is written in orange color, that is photocopy, is the things that it returns to that man. Okay, and this is the thing which he's taking, means we can say what it takes, what it takes, what it takes, and what it returns. Okay, what it returns. And the last one is the name of that robot, or name of that function. So we can say that robot is a function. Okay, he takes the printed paper and the number of copies, follow these steps to perform the task, and when return, he has to return the entire things to the man who has called him. Okay, so this is just a story of a robot. How this story is related to functions in C, you will be able to know it shortly, means in the next slide itself. Okay, so let us now take this analogy. Analogy means this example to understand what exactly functions in C is. Okay, so let us try to understand it. Assume that you are writing a program, maybe. So this is the program code that you are going to write, let's say, and you might be going to write 100 line or 200 line of code, and out of that 200 line, maybe somewhere at some place of in this code, means let's say at this place, then at this place, then at this place, at 3 places you need to find, you need to check a number is prime or not. This may be your requirement. This is the requirement of your program, that you need to write something, means you are trying to solve a problem where there are 200 lines, and out of that you need to write code for checking a number is prime or not, and you are going to write it 3 times in your program. Okay, might be your prime number code to check a number is prime or not, maybe it constitute, let's say, 20 lines. Okay, that means this 20 line need to be repeated 3 times at this place, at this place, and at this place. So this 20 line need to be repeated. That means at this place you have to write the same 20 line to check a number is prime or not. Similarly, again after writing some code, you need again the same code. So you need to repeat the same 20 line of code over here also. Similarly, you need the 20 line of code at this place also, right? So that means you are writing the same code three different locations. That means 60 line you are writing it, means you are writing it 60 line means 20 line plus 20 line plus 20 line, that means 60 line you have to write. Okay, but functions in C says that rather than writing or repeating the code at several places of your program, why don't we write this 20 line of code in a separate area, or we can say separate code. We'll make it a separate code, and that code is actually called a function. Okay, and wherever we need this 20 line to execute, we should call this function. Let's say this function name is prime. Okay, and I will call this prime function with a single line only. So prime, I'll call prime again here, I'll call prime again here. So just one line of code I have to write. Okay, and this 20 line has to be written over here. Okay, this is the 20 line I have written one time, and wherever necessary in my program, in my entire program, wherever I require this prime function, I just call this prime function. Just like that man is calling the robot every time he want to print or make a photocopy of its original document. So he has to call that robot, and every time he don't require to explain the entire steps, that the steps that we have written over here. The man has already written the steps, the robot has already read this step what to do. So every time this man calls this robot, he need not to explain all these lines repeatedly. Okay, he has to call like this: robot, please take this printed paper, make 5 photocopies. So the robot knows how to make five photocopies by following these lines, right? The same thing in C programming also we are doing. Okay, so this is the actual requirement of a function in C programming language. So go in the detail of a function. So this is not the first time you are learning about function. Actually, you are actually using functions from the beginning of the session itself. Means the day you have started learning C programming language, you are actually writing a function. So that function is actually the main. So in every program you are writing this. If you remember, whatever program till now we have done, you just write the first line as like int main, then you put a bracket over here, then you put a curly braces, then whatever code you want to write, you write it over there. So what is this main is? It is actually a function. Okay, that means this is a function whose what the function will do has not been defined yet, and you are writing some lines inside that main function to tell the computer to do this task. Okay, so this is exactly a function is. Now not only main function you are using, you are also using some other functions like printf function. Okay, so this is also a function, you have already used it. Scanf function, you also have used it. Sqrt function, you have already used it. Okay, so if you remember, you use this printf scanf every time you want to print a line on the screen, and every time you want to read a number from the user. Similarly, if you want to find square root of a number, you are using this function. Okay, so where does this function comes from? These functions are actually called predefined functions. Predefined functions. Okay, so in general, there are two types of functions possible in C programming language. So the first one is called your predefined function, predefined, and second one is called your user defined function. Okay, so you already know how to use a predefined function. So every time I'm writing a predefined function or I'm using a predefined function in my program, I need to follow the syntax of that printf function. If you remember, if I want to print a statement, I always told you that you should write something like this: printf, start the bracket, put a double quote. The statement you want to print, let's say hello world, you have to put it something like this. Then you have to close the double quote, then you have to put the bracket, then you have to put the semicolon. Then only if you write this line, then only the computer understand it properly and he will print this hello world on the screen. Okay. Similarly, if you want to print the value of a variable, let's say the value of a variable means the variable x has a value 5. If you want to print the value of x, then also you need to follow the syntax of printf. So printf, you are writing %d as this is an integer, then you put a comma, then you write x, then only the value of x gets printed on the screen. So by following the syntax of this printf function, you are actually printing the things. But how exactly the computer understand that if I will write something like this, x value gets printed, when I'll write something like this, then hello world get printed? How the computer will know? Actually, the printf function, what the printf function, think the printf as a robot in the previous example, that example that we have discussed in the previous slide. Think this printf as a robot, then it could have its definition, means its body part, what are the steps involved in printing this hello world may be written somewhere. So where it is actually written? So the definition of these printf statements are actually written inside stdio.h header file. That is why you are including this header file while you are writing a program. This part we have already discussed in some part of your series. Okay. But try to understand this printf, this scanf, this square root function, everything are actually a function which is called as predefined functions. Okay, till now we are using predefined function to achieve our goal or to solve our problems. But the life is not easy on that way always. And those who have developed C programming language, they have not developed every function individually so that you can directly use it. Like just now I have explained about the prime number. So there is no function available who will take the input as a prime number, I mean take a input as a number, and he will that function will tell you whether it is prime or not. You need to write the code to check whether a number is prime or not. Okay, so if your program require that the prime number should be checked 10 times in a program, then you need to separate that code from the main program. So from the main program you have to separate it and you have to write it somewhere else. Let's say this is your prime function, this is your main function, and this main function is trying to call the prime function anytime you want at any places inside the code. Got it? So to make your function, you need to understand what do you mean by user defined function. Means if you want to create your own functions rather than printf, scanf, these are the predefined function, you are using it in your program for writing codes, but still you need to create your own function. So when you try to create your own function, that functions are actually called user defined function. The user create it for his purposes. For an example, the man who is trying to print his documents or photocopy of the document, he has created that robot for his work. So that robot is created by that man for doing his work. Similarly, whenever you need to do your work with some coding and that work is that type of function is not available in the library of the C programming language, then you have to create it. So to create that function, that is user defined function, you need to understand the syntax, how you should create your function, where you should write it, where you should store it, how you should call it. So everything need to be discussed in subsequent lecture. But before that, I will try to explain you the syntax of C function first. Okay. So this is what the syntax is looking like, syntax of writing a C function. So this is the box which is showing the syntax of the C function, and here you can notice that the syntax will contain these parts. The first part is your return type. you need to specify what the function is going to return after executing all the statements. Then you need to write a function name. You can notice the function name has no space in between them because it is an identifier, and you know what is an identifier is. A identifier which is identify something. So to identify a function, you need to give the function name. Like in our example, we have given that robot name as robot. Okay. Similarly, whenever you are trying to write a function, you need to give the function name. Let's say you want to write a program for find a function for finding out whether a number is prime or not, then you could have given that function name as prime. Okay, so that is the function name. That means you are going to identify that function with the word prime. Okay, similarly, whenever a function is written, the function may be taking some inputs. Okay, so that input is actually called the parameter list. In general, the parameter list is nothing but it is a comma separated list of variables with their data types. So what is that, you will be going to know right now, but for the timing you just understand that this parameter list is nothing but what the function will take. Okay, similarly, after he is taking that parameter list, he has to perform some tasks. So we need to define the statements for that. We need to write the step what he will do with these inputs. If I am going to give two inputs over here, what he is going to do with that input, that need to be explained in these statements. Okay, after he is doing that, whatever result he will get, he has to return it. So whenever he is going to return it, that return type must be written over here. Generally, the return types are a data type. Maybe your function will return an integer, maybe it returns a float, or maybe it returns a character, or maybe it returns a double. So whatever return means whatever value he is going to return, you have to write it over here. Sometimes the function may not return anything, so at that time you need to write void. Sometimes the function will not take any input, so that time you need to write void inside this bracket as well. Okay, so that depends on what is the requirement of your function, why you are writing that function, what is the function of means what the function is going to do. So all these depends what is the value of this return type or the parameter list, whether there will be parameters or not. So that is depend upon what exactly your requirement is. Okay, so to understand in a detailed manner, what I am going to do is I'll explain you with a simple example. Okay, so let us understand it with a simple example. So this is your function, which is the syntax of the function which is written over here. I'm trying to explain you with a simple example. Let's say you want to write a function to add two numbers. Okay, write a function to add two numbers. Now how do you write this function, that we are trying to understand. Okay, so you just think it something like this. Maybe that man who is employing a robot, maybe he want to create a robot who will add two number. Okay, so what exactly the man will trying to write in his code, I'm trying to explain you. Okay, so let's say I'll buy a robot and I want to give the name as add. Why I'm giving it the name as add? Because he is going to add two numbers, so that is why I'm going to give the name as add. So this is the add function. Now after writing the function name, what I should give, what I should what the add function should take so that he can perform the addition. He has to take two number, so that is called the parameter list. So I'm going to give you two number, let's say int a, int b. I'm concentrating on adding two integers, so you have to put a comma over here. So now you can notice that this part is actually called the parameter list. Okay, so after the add function takes this two input, what he is going to return after the addition a plus b, the result will be an integer, so he has to return an integer too. Okay, now that I have written the first line of the function, I need to explain, or I need to write the body of this function so that he will follow this steps to add this two number. So how to do that? So for that I need another variable, let's say int c. I'll write c is equal to a plus b, because this function have already this two number a and b. He need to declare another variable c. He has to add a and b, store in c, and finally after adding this you has to return the value of c, something like this, return c. Okay, so now that everything I have written, so you can just notice this return type. So what is this return type? This return type is integer. What is the function name? The function name is add. What is the parameter list? The parameter list is int a and int b. Then what are the statements? That there are three statements. Statement 1 declares a variable c. Statement 2 add the value of a and b and store in c. And the third statement returns the value of c. So this is exactly called a function. Got it? I think I am taking lots of time for explaining what is a function. In the next class, I will try to show you what exactly we are going to do with this function. Okay, so that's all for today. If you still facing any difficulty in understanding this concept, you can write your comment on the comment box, and I'm requesting you just watch the part 2 of this video so that you can get a complete knowledge how you are going to use this function in your program. So thanks for listening. Goodbye.